So I was at the Man United game against Fulham, 1-0 on the night. First game of the season. First of all, shout out to Hublot for sending me out there, bro. Amazing experience. Me and Abs Busquets went out there. You guys might know Abs from SDS. We had amazing seats. And I was saying on a show after, right? I think at this point in the season, too much emphasis shouldn't really be placed on like style of play and identity and all that stuff. I really think the beginning of the season, while it has to be a worry for sure, the most important thing is getting points on the board. Honestly, make sure you don't start out with a loss. And I think with United, right, in the situation that Erik ten Hag is in, look, I don't know if there's anybody on the planet that needs results more than Erik ten Hag right now. And I understand, right? He got his 2-year contract. He's coming off a trophy from last season. A lot of you guys might be thinking, well, there's actually probably managers with more pressure on him. But let's really look at it this way, right? Last season, you were either of the belief that Ten Hag hadn't done enough to kind of see a third year. To be honest, I was in that boat. Or you believe that Ten Hag deserved a third year under new ownership to get his players back, to not have to deal with that many injuries and see what he can do. Give him a fair chance, right? Obviously, the latter got what they wanted. And you know what, I'm a fair guy. Let's see what he can do. I'm not going to kick up a strut now because it didn't go my way. But I've spoken to a lot of United fans that last season were of the opinion that everything wasn't Ten Hag's fault and he deserved more time. He deserved the third season, and that are happy he got that third season, but are still saying, look, I'm happy he got that third season, but now it's crunch time for Ten Hag. He can't afford another poor season. The first one was great. The second one was a disaster. The third one now, you've had one good, one bad. What can you do now? And although a lot of people gave him leniency from last season, I don't know if that leniency extends into this year now because he's gotten his players in, he's under a more competent board, and the squad is healthy. So Ten Hag is under massive expectation, in my opinion, massive pressure to really deliver and deliver early. And it looked at times like last night, or whenever you guys are watching this, the Fulham game, there were things that I observed from that game, right? There were some things that I thought United did really well that I've actually haven't seen from United for a long time. Let's talk about that. The first thing I noticed was how they pressed. That was probably the most positive display of pressing I have seen from United since that game against Crystal Palace under Ralph Rangnick, where we all thought that he was going to turn us into like these gegenpressing monsters. Since then, obviously, we saw that was like a false dawn. And Ten Hag's first season, we had success, but a lot of it came from sitting deep and inviting other teams to kind of come on to us. Last season, we'll completely forget about it, right? This was kind of like everything that Ten Hag had wanted to kind of put into preseason, the team pressing high from the front. And not even just pressing high, pressing aggressively. And it was kind of initiated from two players, Mason Mount, Bruno Fernandes. They were the two guys leading the press. And we're going to talk about both of them, right? Because I don't think either of them, in the grand scope of the game, had great performances. I don't think Bruno, much of what he kind of attempted really came off. And I think Mason Mount was ineffective. In my opinion, he had zero impact on the game. And I have to say this, right? This is now the second performance in a row from Mason Mount playing in this like dual false nine role with Bruno, where I really think, okay, he's tried, he's huffed, he's puffed, he's won his tackles, he's been great in the press. And you actually saw when he came off, the press probably suffered a little bit. But we didn't spend £60 million on a guy who runs off the ball. We used to have Jesse Lingard to do that. We do need a bit more from Mason Mount. But I feel a little bad for him, right? Because I've been a defender of him on this channel. A lot of people know that. I think he's a good player. I think he's actually starting to become disrespected. People are acting like Mason Mount is a scrub. He's a good player. But chat, he's a good player in his actual position. Either as an 8, as a 10, maybe even on the right, but not up front. That role, I'm sorry, right? He literally looks like he's just chasing the ball a lot of the time. And again, he's great for our press. But when he gets on it, okay, he has a few nice touches here and there, combines well enough with Ahmad on the right, but there's no real impact to his performance on the game. What he's doing, a lot of other players, in my opinion, could go onto that pitch and do a similar kind of role. Maybe not off the ball, which again, I have to commend him for that. But on the ball, I think you can get more than that. And that's my issue with Mason Mount, right? I think he's a good player, but I think he's a good player in those roles. The issue that he has is that Bruno plays there, Manu plays there. He's not getting in over any of them. So he can be a rotation guy for either of them, come in for the odd game if they need a rest, if it's the kind of opponent that requires a Mason Mount in midfield. But for the most part, Mason Mount is not our first choice midfielder in either of those roles. And I'm sorry, if he's not going to be that, please don't shoehorn him in to this number 9 position, or this false 9 position, just to kind of play him. And I feel at the moment, that's kind of what Ten Hag's trying to do because he likes him. He's a good player. He wears the number 7. They bought him for £60 million. I almost feel like he has a bit of pressure to kind of play him, but I don't think he does. And look, I think Zirkzee, that goal that he scored, alongside his performance after the goal, because I thought, funny enough, when Zirkzee came on, I didn't think he touched the ball for like 20, 25 minutes. He was almost invisible at times. But that goal, I think, kind of gave him some confidence, lifted his shoulders up a little bit, started to get involved more from that point. And I would be very surprised if he doesn't start the next game against Brighton away from home. But I think this Mason Mount and Bruno Fernandes experiment has to end. So 2 things I noticed. The pressing, much improved from last season. And it was aggressive, but it was also aggressive as a unit. It wasn't just one guy running like a headless chicken. When Bruno went to chase the right center back, it would swing to the left. Mount would then go chase the left center back. And then he would go give it to the left back. Ahmad is there already. He tries going down the line. Mazraoui is there. Maguire is hugging in. We really suffocated Fulham at times in that first half. So that was something I was very impressed with. But the other thing I noticed, this dual number 9 thing, I think it's also because, look, Højlund has been out. Zirkzee was deemed not fit enough to play in the Community Shield, or maybe not even to start against Fulham. But going forward, I think that experiment has to kind of be scrapped. I don't think it worked. The first half, right, I think we played well. I don't think we played exceptionally well, but I think we played well enough. And I think we played well enough, especially to go into the break up by a goal or two. Bruno had 2 gilt-edged chances that I thought were created quite well, both times from Casemiro. Good saves from Bernd Leno, but Bruno should be finishing both of those, in my opinion. He's a very good finisher in front of goal. I think he could have done better in both those situations. Casemiro got himself on what seemed like a million chances. Like, every single cross that we put into the box, it seemed like Casemiro was there. Like, he's like a magnet for the ball. The ball kept falling to him to strike it. I was like, damn, they really want Casemiro to score today. So we had enough chances, in my opinion, to justifiably say we should have gone into the break up by at least a goal, if not 2. But one thing, again, I noticed, right? And I think it's similar to last season as well. And it's actually probably similar to Ten Hag's Ajax team, the latter one. One thing I don't like about the way Ten Hag's team plays, it's how they instruct Maguire and Lisandro, or whoever's playing at center back, whether it's going to be De Ligt, Lenny Yoro. And it's similar to how we played at Ajax with Jurrien Timber, or whoever was playing there, Lisandro as well there. They're almost given the responsibility of being the guys to carry the ball off the pitch and progress the ball. And I hear it. Maguire's a good ball progressor. Lisandro's a good passer. Yoro is supposed to be a good passer. I hear that. But United are completely negating their own midfield the way they're playing right now. If you notice, everything is kind of going wide. The amount of times Mazraoui would play the ball down to Ahmad, or Dalot would play the ball down to Rashford, and we're trying to build up that way. Or with Maguire and Lisandro just standing on the ball and trying to play these crazy diagonals. The amount of times we literally just like looked past Menu or Casemiro in build-up, and I think it's instructed because they don't really show for the ball. I think it's a tactic from Ten Hag. We don't really play through the midfield. And then when you add that to the fact that Bruno's not really playing as a midfielder, Mount's not playing as a midfielder, I find it's quite difficult for United to actually retain possession playing this way. And it's why, in my opinion, so many of United's games end up appearing like basketball games. And look, Fulham didn't really create much on the night, but there were a lot of times as well, too, where Fulham are breaking with quite ease. And to be fair to United, they defend well. Lisandro got skinned by Adama the first time, dealt with him well the second time. But both times, it's moments where United are kind of exposed on the counterattack. There were a lot of times where Fulham kind of found success against United, especially when they were trying to build up. And I think a lot of that has to do, again, with the fact that we're completely just like bypassing our entire midfield. And it's not something I'm a huge fan of. I think it leaves us very susceptible to being hurt by opposition. It's why so many of United's games, they never really seem to be in full control. Like, there's always like the doubt and the worry and the threat of the other team just absolutely punishing them out of nothing. And I think it's something they need to improve on, because you look at the best teams in the world, right? I'll look at Arsenal and City, especially in the Premier League, right? What makes them so great is they really limit how much of a chance the opposition even has to get into the game. Like, they played almost like as a percentages game. We are not going to allow the other team to even get near our box. When they get it, we're going to win the ball up so high that it doesn't even matter if they have possession. When we have it, we're going to basically make it impossible for them to get it off us. And I know those two are, at the current moment, they're the standard in the Premier League. Every single team in the league is trying to get to City and to Arsenal's level. And I understand United is not at that level yet. But I think it's one thing not being at their level yet because of the players that we have. But tactically, if we want to get there with Ten Hag can't just like download upgrades over the summer. It's not like we can buy new players. I think tactically it's something that he, alongside a lot of managers in the league, right? Because a lot of these managers haven't spent a lot of money. He needs to improve tactically, and he needs to improve this team tactically, because I think the board have done a really good job of raising the floor of the team. And the likes of De Ligt and the likes of Zirkzee, I think those two have really elevated the physical level of our team, which was really struggling from last season. And in the form of Mazraoui, who we'll talk about in a bit, and who else did we buy this year? Mazraoui, Yoro as well too in terms of physicality, Zirkzee as well in terms of the technical floor. I think we've raised that with those two as well too. So I think the signings that we've made have improved the floor of the team. But to improve the ceiling of the team, I do think tactically it's going to have to come a lot from Erik ten Hag. And I think there were some things to take away that were very good against Fulham, but there were also some things that I'm questioning against better opposition or against more ruthless opposition. Could we have been punished last night? And you guys might be thinking I'm being a little harsh, but chat, we just came off a season where we finished 8th. That's still a worry for me. I have to be honest here, right? Like, I am positive after last night. I think there was a lot of good to take, but it's not all perfect at United. And to be fair, it's normal, right? It's the first game of the season. And like I started it off, the first game of the season, the first few games of the season is about results. But you have to also keep an eye out for how this team wants to play. If we look at a few of the individual performances, I thought Maguire was the man of the match alongside Mazraoui. I thought the two of them were sublime. I did think Lisandro at times wasn't at his best that we know he is. Passing was sometimes a little flat, got beat in behind a few times. I thought Maguire was actually the better of the two. In the air, imperious, man. And it goes back to what I said, right? Love him or hate him, having Maguire to call upon as a fourth choice center back is ridiculous. Not many teams in the league, if any, can call upon a center back of the quality of Maguire as their fourth choice center back. So I know Maguire is a touchy subject for a lot of people. A lot of people don't like him, but you have to give him his credit, bro. Like, the last year or so when he's been called upon, he's done a job. And I actually think that taking away the captaincy a year ago has done wonders for his confidence, because he's finally not playing within himself. He's finally playing like the Harry Maguire that we probably signed from Leicester all those years ago. So I thought he was amazing. I thought Mazraoui had a dream debut, honestly, right? All the question marks about, are we losing too much 1v1 ability in Wan-Bissaka by replacing him with Mazraoui? Look, you're never going to be able to replace how good Wan-Bissaka was at defending 1v1. But as an all-out defender, Mazraoui is a very, very competent defender. And he showed for me all of his skills, all of his attributes on full effect, on full show against Fulham. On the ball, very, very comfortable. Inverting, very, very comfortable. Footballing IQ. I'm sorry, chat. You can talk about physicality all you want. You can talk about technical ability all you want. But understanding where to be, where to play it, where the ball is going to be before it even gets there. Footballing IQ, Mazraoui has that Ajax education, if you want to call it that. And it's very evident in the way he plays. And I'm going to reiterate this, right? At £15 million, signing Mazraoui, in my opinion, is a bargain. He's not going to be Trent putting up 20 assists this season. He's not going to be Reece James being this all-out right-back phenom. He's not as good as those two. But he's a very, very competent right-back. And I thought he had a dream debut against Fulham. Zirkzee, I spoke about it, right? First 25 minutes, I was actually thinking, like, damn, Zirkzee's supposed to be like a technical, well-rounded striker. I don't think he touched the ball, chat, for like 20 minutes. Maybe got like one flick on. But that goal was so well taken, right? We were crying out, in my opinion, in that first half. For as well as we were playing, we were crying out for like a focal point inside. A big guy. And trust me, right? Zirkzee is huge. 6'4". The guy's a monster. But he's a monster with very delicate feet. Very, very talented footballer. Took the finish extremely well. And from there, I actually think the goal gave him so much confidence. Like, his shoulders started to kind of like rise a little bit. And all of a sudden, he was getting involved. He was making decoy runs. He was combining with Rashford. And I'd be very, very surprised if he doesn't start against Brighton. And I think he's fully earned it. Ahmad had his moments, especially in the first half. But I think Ahmad, right, is kind of in a situation that Garnacho was a few years ago, where like, they're the new guy, they're the young guy, and no matter how anyone else plays, they're probably going to be the first one replaced. I think that's the reality here. Ahmad was not, in my opinion, worse than Rashford. I think Ahmad actually had a better performance than Rashford, but you could also tell Ahmad was making some very naive mistakes. There was one point where he lost the ball in his own half, then he got it back, and immediately just like booted the ball up the pitch to absolutely no one. And I looked at Abs and I said, Ahmad's coming off, like it or not. Like, and within 3 minutes, I think Ten Hag took him off. But I thought his cameo was promising. He was taking on players. He was combining well, gliding like Ahmad does. I think just the final touch was kind of missing today. We'll see if he starts against Brighton. Me personally, I like Garnacho as a super sub. I think he does that role extremely well. And I think starting him from the start kind of removes an aspect of like the burst and excitement that he brings coming in as a substitute. So it's a tough one, right? Because Garnacho is a big goal threat, probably more than Ahmad. But I think the dynamic of him coming off the bench for either Rashford or Ahmad, Rashford or Ahmad, I think Garnacho coming off the bench for either of those two is a better dynamic than starting him from the front. And then if it doesn't work out, you don't have any kind of like speed to bring him off the bench. I think starting Ahmad and bringing on whether it's Rashford or Garnacho, I think works better for United. Rashford, for me, it was a continuation of his Community Shield performance. Again, it's an improvement on last year. I actually really like the work rate Rashford is showing this year. He looks asked this year, which is an improvement on last year. Chasing down loose balls, chasing down his opposition fullback. I love that. That's a bare minimum. And he didn't play bad per se, right? Made some nice passes, combined well. But just like the first game, Chad, I think Rashford's just playing very timid at the moment. Like, none of his actions actually have impetus in them, right? Like, I look at the pass that he gave to Garnacho at the end. For me, that's the perfect example of what I'm talking about right now. A lot of people are going back and forth. Is it Garnacho's fault? Is it Rashford's fault? Chat, I'll be honest, right? First of all, I was sat literally in direct line with the pass, right? Like where a linesman would be. I saw the entire pitch from Rashford passing to Garnacho. The pass A wasn't weighted brilliantly, and B, it was played behind him. And this is where you got, like, I'm seeing people analyze the move in like screenshots. Like, oh, look, Garnacho has this open goal and he sends it wide. That's Garnacho's fault. Yeah, if you analyze football in screenshots, you can come to a million different conclusions. But if you watch the action in real time and actually try and put yourself in the situation, think about it like this. Garnacho is sprinting full speed. Sprinting full speed. Now, I feel like people are looking at this like it's FIFA. If you pass him the ball, he should just be able to stop, control it, and just roll it into an open net. In theory, yeah, that's brilliant. But if you're running at full speed and the ball is even slightly behind you, you're having to completely change the movement of your body, completely slow yourself down from a full sprint, and completely basically like reshape your body to like drag your left foot back and then put it into an open net. That's not easy for anybody, let alone a professional athlete going that fast. It's not me taking a dig at Rashford. It's not me taking a dig at Garnacho. I think both of them could probably do a little better there. But for me, if Rashford was going to pass that pass, it had to be played in front of Garnacho with the correct pace. But it's what I mean when I say right now, he's almost in two minds whenever he makes any kind of action. And that pass for me represented that. It wasn't a pass played with full confidence. Rashford at his absolute best is playing that perfectly into Garnacho's stride, and he's finishing it into an open net. I have no doubt about it in my mind. But at this current moment, I'm watching Rashford and all of his actions, whether it was that finish against City in the Community Shield or whether it's this pass to Garnacho. I don't think his actions at the current moment are being played with 100% confidence. That's just the way I'm viewing it. You guys can disagree. I'd love to know your thoughts underneath, of course. But at the current moment, that's the way I'm kind of looking at Rashford. But his overall game is good. I think Rashford is playing well at the moment. I just think he can hit another level. Like, I know what Rashford is capable of. I think he can do better. That's just my personal opinion. Casemiro was another one. How do we view Casemiro's game? It's a weird one for me, right? I actually think on the ball, like in terms of Casemiro is such a weird player, because he's capable of pulling off these extraordinary passes that most midfielders could only dream of. Like, I was telling Abs, who's obviously not a big Casemiro fan whatsoever, Casemiro plays these incredible flicks that basically like go around opposition, like they're flicks around the defender that find a way perfectly balanced into his teammate. He does those so well. That pass that he plays to Bruno for his chance, it's a brilliant pass. Those ones he can play with absolute effortless ease. But it's almost the passes that are just like, you don't even have to think about them, that he struggles with. 2-yard pass to his midfielder. That's when Casemiro will weight it completely incorrectly, probably pass it directly into the opposition, and we lose the ball. Or like those ones where he just nonchalantly tries and like just kicks it into the air, and any kind of momentum that we've built in possession is automatically gone. So Casemiro, in one way, I think played a really good game in terms of, look, he got himself on a ton of chances. He almost probably could have scored a few times for us, played Bruno in a few times. Like, in that aspect, Casemiro was excellent. But I can't lie, in terms of what you actually need from a DM, I don't think Casemiro played a great game. And I think it's going to be repetitive throughout this season. I think it's going to be a pattern that we see throughout this season where Casemiro has his moments, but also the absolute need to sign a more technically secure DM is going to scream at us all season long. And I know United are really linked with Ugarte at the moment, but I have to be honest with you, Chad. I don't think Ugarte is going to be too much of an upgrade in that sense. He is more mobile than Casemiro is at this age, but I don't think he can play those crazy Hollywood passes that Casemiro sometimes pulls off. And in terms of being like that first phase dictator in possession of just like racking up high amounts of passes and keeping the tempo of the game ticking, he's not a Zubimendi kind. He's not a Rodri type. He's not that kind of player. And I do think we're going to have similar issues when we bring in Ugarte. Like, I think he'll be able to cover ground better than Casemiro, but I think the in-possession struggles that we have Casemiro at the moment, I don't expect them to be just solved overnight with Ugarte. I have to be honest with you, Chad. I think that's really it. I think it's a good start to the season. I think it's massively important for Ten Hag and United to get off to a winning start. It's going to boost the team with confidence. I'm sure it boosted the fan base with confidence. I came out of it absolutely buzzing. And look, it's going to be a weird season, right? We're coming off one of the worst seasons I've ever seen from United, but we have a new ownership, we have new players, and it seems like the fan base is really united, no pun intended, around this group and around Ten Hag as well too. Like, Ten Hag came out after his group came out for like basically to do the kickoff, and he got a massive standing ovation. Like, one of the loudest standing ovations for a manager I can remember seeing at Old Trafford. The fan base is supporting him. We are united behind him, but don't get it twisted. I don't think it's going to be like last year where he can afford to have another season like last year. I think last year he had bought himself enough credit in the bank from the year prior, and I think people were so fed up with the Glazers that we decided, or they decided, Ten Hag is the first manager that we're going to basically say, no, he can't go. They have to go before him, or these players have to go. And I hear it, but I don't think that same graciousness or that same grace is going to be afforded to him this season. I think this season, the pressure is back on, not only to get into the top four, which is where United should belong, bare minimum, but I think that pressure to really stamp and authoritize a way of playing that we can consistently and sustainably play all season, I think that demand is going to be absolutely massive. But it's a long season. I look forward to seeing it. Look forward to bringing you guys more of these as well too. And yeah, we'll see you soon. Peace.